Johson, executive, speaker, entrepreneur, son. How's it going, man?
Everything is well. How are you?
I'm doing well, brother. Look, it's a pleasure to have you here. You know, it's interesting. I think about all the guests that we've had on Living Corporate. I think about, senior executives, activists, elected officials, different types of entrepreneurs and educators. But I don't know if Living Corporate has had, and frankly, personally, if I've had the pleasure of interviewing somebody who is like in partnership with their father in a hyper rare space for Black professionals. Talk to me a little bit about about Continuum and the work that you're doing, and just level set for the audience. Like, what is Continuum?
Sure. Space Continuum is a commercial interior design firm. We do space planning. We work with a lot of architects. We pretty much just outfit any space from any type of corporations to not-for-profits, any facility. We could pretty much just put any type of furniture in your space and make it more convenient for you.
So it's interesting because I think of, and this kind of goes into like, when I think about like the world of business, there's so much like money to be made, or rather like potential for business and things that you just don't even really think about. You think about like every day you're walking in these huge buildings. Well, somebody had to put it all together. They had to like actually furnish and design that space. So like, talk to me a little bit about the fact, like how did you determine or realize that even this industry was a space that, no pun intended, that makes sense for you to engage?
Well, it's interesting because my father actually started out doing this back in the 90s. He was the VP of another minority firm called, oh my goodness, just tip of my tongue, Cynthia Johnson, but Johnson Associates. So he's the VP of that. And they pretty much did commercial furnishing. I actually got into the business back in high school. I used to work in the warehouse doing installation, all the products in the warehouse, learning everything from operations, and kind of got familiar with the whole industry in that type of way. But he kind of brought me along the way as I went through college. I went away, did my own thing, got into whole entrepreneurship, built businesses, sold them. And then he wanted me to come back home and kind of be his successor in this industry because I was kind of familiar with it. So it's not that many of us in the industry. You could probably count on two hands nationwide as far as minority business. But it's a very niche industry to get in. It's very hard to get in, but it's very lucrative as far as the business and identifying opportunities and bring your creativity ideas to life.
It's interesting to your point about there not being a lot, there's not a lot of Black folks in this industry and or minorities at large. Mm-hmm. Beyond just like racism, like why do you think that is? Like why do you think this is such a rare space? Folks that look
I think it's pretty much exposure to it. It's not exposed to us. We don't have a lot of design, trades within the high schools, and also people are thinking of going to design schools. So we just don't actually have the idea that these opportunities are out there to kind of get into the space. And there's a whole nother level as far as becoming a dealer. Right. So then becoming a dealer for certain manufacturers and just pretty much going down that rabbit hole as far as like if they're supporting you, if you have the cash, if you have the actual operation to kind of get started and things like that, so that's why. So, but it starts with exposure first.
So, yeah. So let's start there actually, because I did have a question about the cost of entry. But so on the exposure side, you mentioned something about trade. So interior design is a trade.
Yeah.
And so then, to that end, I mean, as you think about like the landscape of work today and just education, I remember when I graduated from high school in 2008. And when I graduated from high school, I remember we had like a trade school so you could learn automotive, you could learn like you could learn like carpentry. There were things you could learn. So when you graduated, you could like go be a mechanic, or you could go be whatever the case is. Like those things are really going away, like in lieu of like, hey, like let's get your accelerated. Let's make sure you graduate with your associate's degree or whatever the case is. So like in lieu of like high schools not providing that exposure, like just as a whole, not just talking about interior design, but just the pivot away from trades. And like, there's been an ongoing conversation about, hey, you need to learn a trade. Like where else would you recommend that people get exposed to a trade like interior design?
Well, I mean, it's really have to be your passion, right? A lot of people go into the whole residential market because it's a lot easier. They kind of start out with friends and family and build their own portfolio. They're able to like kind of go out to this other different vendors. That's a lot easier to get pricing with. And, you know, say, because commercial pricing and residential pricing are totally two different type of pricing tiers, you know, as far as like quality, you know, longevity of the furniture. So most people started out in that industry, right? If you want to get into the commercial space, a lot of people become architects. So they go to architectural schools. We go on do internships with architecture design firms, and they might transition over to becoming a designer because they already have the kind of the foundation on how to actually, like saying, do blueprints, do CAD drawings, and then they kind of transfer over to like the design world.
You know, to your point though, like it sounds as if when it comes to like the space of design, be it residential or certainly commercial, there's a bunch of other skills within that. Like there's a bunch of other trades or skills within that larger trade of interior design. Am I wrong?
Yes and no. I think from an interior design standpoint, like it's really about how you are creative to kind of put different patterns and color patterns together. Really see a space where you can understand the client's vision, but then you know how to kind of create the functionality where they might not understand functionality of it, right? It's more of like a science to it, how things are moved. Specific chairs, the quality of the chairs, right? There's a lot of things that go into it as far as like, how long are you sitting in the chair for hours, right? Those type of things. If you have a lobby room, how long do you actually want the customers to wait in your lobby? So the different questions you're asking, are your customers waiting in the lobby 20 to 30 minutes or they're in the lobby for 5 to 10 minutes, right? So you don't want something super comfortable, somebody fall asleep. You want something that's basic. They get in, sit down, and they moving out, right? So that's also the cost effect of everything, these conversations.
You know what? I love that. So from what I'm hearing is you're having to be thoughtful and considerate of the type of customer or client experience that your clients are looking to deliver. But then also to your point, it's not just about customer experience. It's also about thinking about employee experience because if you're doing right. So it's like, I mean, I just love that example of, okay, hey, what kind of chairs do we want to have in the waiting room, in the lobby? What kind of desks do we want to have in our shared working space? What kind of, you know, what do all these things look like? Based on the type of experience you're trying to deliver on both sides of the desk.
Yep.
That's pretty dope. Go ahead.
To back support in the chairs. I mean, there's so many different features and functions that these chairs have. They pretty much can be like, they can be well equipped that NASA has the most, type of technology in these chairs, right? To the certain extent that they go through, even the material and the durability of the chair, dropping certain things on the chair that it lasts. You know, you could like indestructible chairs, right? Nothing's indestructible, but they constantly showcasing that it could be, right? Just kind of displaying different showcases. But, you know, a lot of technology just goes into different types of furnitures and functionalities. Even from the desk standpoint, you know, you have the whole sit to stand thing where people don't want to sit all day. Now they can stand up day to kind of increase more blood flow, circulation through the body, or just exercising, you know. So there's so many different things to talk to the employees about what they want. And of course, some employees, they want what they want, but they don't use, right? So they have to find a balance. Okay, what makes sense and what you guys really don't actually not going to use. So.
And it sounds like to your point also about like, again, it's like you're thinking about the end-to-end experience in terms of also, like you just mentioned blood flow. So like their wellness, right? Like, like how they're actually feeling, because of course, if your employees or your customers aren't in their most like ideal state from a physical perspective, you're not probably gonna get the outcomes you're looking for. You know, it's interesting. You talked also about like technology. And I want to get there, but first I want to go back to something you said about your father, right? So, you know, your father, you said he brought you along into this after you kind of did your own thing. Talk to me about like coming up, right? Growing up with your father, did you anticipate or envision that y'all would be working together?
I had it always in the back of my mind that would probably eventually happen just based on him sharing his vision and kind of seeing what he truly wanted at the end of the day and what he was building. Of course, I had another idea in my mind, but, you know, when you start thinking about legacy and just the family or the family dynamic of small businesses and growing to be larger, you know, you don't see that a lot these days. You see that families really kind of sell their businesses when children take over. So, you know, I do see the importance of being involved and continue the legacy and continue to make him proud on Spectrum, that he's happy, and just kind of like making sure that the flowers continue to bloom and making sure that we're able to progress. But I did kind of like have an inkling in the back of my head that we will be working together, just based on that we're both entrepreneurs. We talk about business a lot. We disagree a lot, and there's moments where we have that aha moment. Okay, we're on the same path.
So, man, I really want to talk more about this because it's interesting to your point. Like, I feel like with fathers and sons, from like a lot of sons want, like, their first hero is their dad, right? I think about, like, I remember when I was in middle school, my dad was a pharmaceutical salesman. And I was like, man, I want to be a pharmaceutical salesman when I grow up.
Yeah.
Ford Taurus, company car. In my mind, that was the coldest thing because the car was free and he was just driving it everywhere. He had his own personal car. He had a Benz. But then he also had his other, and I was like, man, it's crazy. They pay for your car, and then you get to travel around and talk to doctors all day. And so, at the same time, I also know, like, as you get older, especially around those teenage years, those college years, kind of like, man, I want to do my own thing. So you talked a little bit about, you gave your overview. You talked about the fact that you started off, you went off college, you had some businesses, you sold them, you came back. Like, you said it was in the back of your mind, but obviously that wasn't on the forefront because you went and did your own thing for a little while first. So talk to me about what was it that made you say, all right, let me go back and talk to Pops.
Well, he asked me to come back. So I was off doing my own thing, had my own plan, my own vision. And when he asked me to come back, he really kind of just gave me the vision where we at as the company, right? And where it can go. But of course, I came with terms of my own and how I want to expand the company in different departments. So, he agreed upon it. So we became a national distributor of EV charging stations, because I'm very technology based. So I said, okay, let's continue to expand outside the furniture business, even though, because we can utilize our contacts and continue to expand into this whole new market, which is fresh and brand new, and it's more entertaining and sexy to me, right? So as we came to agree on these terms, we had a great conversation. I said, okay, so what's your plan to kind of like hand this over to me, right? Because that father-son dynamic control. Right. He said, okay, in this amount of years, I really want to kind of like lay this over to you. All right, that makes sense. So we can stay on this path. I'll definitely come back.
So a couple things. The other thing when I think about like father-son dynamics, so like me and my dad, we are like exactly the same, right? Like we are personality wise, like it's like we're like carbon copy, right? We think about, we process things the exact same way. At the same time, I know there's also like, parent and child dynamics where one may take more after like the other parent, right? Would you say that I know you said earlier you and your dad, you think so, but would you say like you're more like your dad in terms of how you think, or are you more like your mom?
I'm the black sheep. I don't think like neither of my parents. I'm the black sheep. I will say this. We will agree on strategies at times. Okay. I believe communication is key in being open and very transparent. And then you have to deal with the bias of being jaded because my father's been through so much and I'm experiencing new things. I have a different viewpoint of how things should be. And maybe my temperament's a little bit different how I handle certain things than him. So, you have those dynamics in this shift that's quite interesting that we're both experiencing, trying to get a handle on, right? As far as the emotional standpoint and just understanding each other where we are at specifically in this point. But our thinking, it's totally different, like I said before, because different generations, how we actually grew up and what we experienced. Of course, when I stepped away, I experienced so much more from a business standpoint and working with other different business owners in different industries. So I come with different insights. He's been in this industry for so long, right? So he has his way of doing things, even though he's very intelligent. He's been around for so long. I just been kind of exposed to different strategies and things that he might not understand at this moment.
It's interesting because you talk, so that's what I want to get back to as well is, so you talked about like the creativity that's involved in like just the commercial design. Now, look, before I get to this EV question, because I do want to talk about that, you talked about also like understanding, like putting colors. So talk colors together. So you talked a little bit about the technical design and furniture but talk to me about like the role that colors play in like creating employee and customer experience. And like as you talk to your clients about design, like break that down for me.
Gotcha. Well, I'll try to give you as much as I can because that really leans on our designers. I'm not an actual designer. I'm more on the operation, sales, and business and money end. But from the standpoint of the colors, we have like some of our manufacturers carry over like 20,000 textiles that you can choose from, right? So it gets very chaotic when you walk into a room. There's all these different fabrics, all these different shades of gray, shades of blue. They all call different colors. It looks like blue to me, right? But they're going to say that's aqua blue, that's this kind of, no, it's like, it's blue to me, right? So you get into that whole mixture, right? And everything plays a major part on lighting. If you have so much sunlight coming into a room, the type of lighting that you're putting into the room, the fixtures, lighting on the desk, all that stuff plays in how you walk into a room and then the comfortability of the environment. So that's up to the designers to actually get to understand what's the culture. What's the culture of the company? Do you want to be very aggressive? Do you want to be very comforting and warming to your employees? You know, hedge funds and law firms are totally different from, from fintechs and other different companies. You know what I'm saying? Like healthcare is totally different from K through 12. So when you start to understand the dynamics of what the culture is and then how people are operating just based on the science of color, things like that, it kind of plays a major part into it. But I'll leave a lot of that to the designers. They're very experts on identifying that very quickly because the client, a lot of clients, they think they know what they want, but then once you start breaking this down and asking questions like a psychology test to them and kind of getting the mindset, it's a little bit different, the direction where they actually going to start going down. They're like, wow, I really never knew I'll be going down this direction, or I'll like that type of pattern or sequence that you put together.
So back to what you talked about in terms of integrating like EV charging stations into commercial design, so that really screams creativity to me. I think a lot of times, like when it comes to sales and business development, I really think that just the aspect of creativity is really undersold, underappreciated. Talk to me about how you connected the dots between EV charging stations and integrating that within like a commercial interior design company. Like, what was the journey to get there?
Well, the journey started back when I wanted to incorporate technology just in commercial spaces, period, right? I wanted a technology department. So we do a lot of K through 12 clients. CPS is one of our clients. And of course, when you go into CPS, you're providing desk and chairs and storage facilities. But I always saw old chalkboards, and I knew technology was transitioning over into interactive whiteboards. And of course, within CPS communities, some of our schools don't have the funds to actually, upgrade their technology systems. So I want to be a main provider to kind of get the kids exposed to new technology, keep their attention spans going. So we was able to kind of put a lot of different interactive whiteboards into the classrooms. We're helping them go through different type of government grants and funds and working with the principals. And we did really well on that sense. So being creative in that space, not only offering furniture, I was having conversation with the principals directly. Okay, how could we transition this and make this environment more cool and attentive to the students? So I always been creative in that standpoint as like, okay, what's another solution that we can add to this problem with the environment? So of course, EV is a huge topic as far as sustainability and changing the infrastructure. We're already talking to a lot of different clients from architects, doing from new construction to old construction. We know they have parking lots. We know people are going to start buying electric cars, right? So why not offer another solution? Because we're already having these conversations of what your environment looks like. So let's take that environment outside. What's your parking lot looks like? Can we have the opportunity to solve that solution? Solve that problem.
So shout out to your dad, because it's interesting to your point about like your dad, he started his business in the 90s, coming from a different starting point. Different, and still yet equal zone of genius, engaging in church. So what did it look like to have that discussion with him and get him on board with technology integration?
Well, it takes my father some time to come on board. My father's definitely the person you have to show proof in the pudding. True. So when I started the conversation, because EV's been around for probably close to about a decade now, but it's starting to pick up momentum. When the actual pretty much the conversation with Tesla and the charger stations and different manufacturers started catching on with different GM, Ford products making other different cars, everybody started coming with different variety. I just started researching the industry. Okay. That's another industry where it's very hard to get in and kind of get an opportunity to become a dealer or a rep to represent somebody's product. So the opportunity came when I actually went to Dartmouth College last year, and I heard Stephen Hightower speak, which is pretty much, he's a Black billionaire. He pretty much controls like majority of the wholesale petroleum. And he was saying that he's transitioning his whole business to EV. So I was like, oil, you make all this money, but now you're transitioning over into this industry. I want to talk to you more. So after chasing him down for a couple of months and finally able to have conversation with him, he said there was a huge conference in Baltimore. I flew to Baltimore. We had a great discussion. I asked him to be my mentor. But before that, I had already secured a contract with a huge manufacturing company to show that, hey, we have the relationships, we have the capabilities, give us a chance to continue to push this out through. So my father kind of saw the works and the progression, what I was trying to do to make sure that we were secure in the right way. And now we're off to the races.
And so it's exciting to me too, because as I hear what you're describing, I mean, the interior design, like that core of what you were brought into is still there, right? Mm-hmm. The colors, to your point, mm-hmm. different fabrics, all those different pieces, the furniture, the different types of desks. I also hear the point of differentiation when it comes to like just technology implementation, not just with EV stations, but just with like you're interrogating a room and saying, okay, this is, y'all still got what's some things they used to bring up when we was transparencies over here. Maybe mm-hmm. we could try, you're looking at it a little bit more holistically from like an experience perspective. Mm-hmm. Would you say that Space Continuum is differentiated that as a firm? Like, would you say that because I would say that I don't, when I think about interior design, I don't know. And again, I'm also being educated in real time, which like right now with the rest of this audience, but Joshua, like, I don't know if I would have considered like hardware, right? Mm-hmm. It's a part of interior redesign. So when you have discussions, so when you're like, in terms of like technology hardware, like when you're having conversations with clients, and obviously, again, like to your point, it's a really niche space. It's, there aren't a lot of folks that look like you in the mm-hmm. space. What does it look like when you're pitching and trying to close business, just and working against competition? Like what do those conversations typically look like?
Well, the conversation is like any sales process. We have a sales cycle, probably about 3 to 6 months. On talking to a client, building that relationship, because we have credibility with so many larger clients that can actually go back and look at our portfolio. And because we also represent some of the biggest manufacturing, so we have their support as well. The conversations is all about, okay, pretty much what do you want to do? Do you have the budget in particular what you're trying to do, or do we need to skew down to maybe a different type of manufacturer that fits their budget, right? So the conversations of closing, it's not that hard. It's just pretty much just kind of just get to the nitty gritty about what we're trying to do based on our credibility. In the beginning, again, there's so many different ways that you can secure contracts, of course, through bids, using your MBE status, DBE status. So if you win a bid, that's a lot easier, you know what I'm saying? Because you're just pretty much speccing everything out to the bid. You'll win a contract. So you can build your portfolio up that way as well. But if we're going through the private sector, just individual clients, it's all about just pitching, okay, here's what we can do. Do you like it or not? You know what I'm saying? Take them to the showroom, give them different options. Do you like it? Where are we going with it?
And it sounds like even the way your tone is, it reminds me of other conversations I've had with sales executives where it's like, hey, it's not personal. Just is we or not, right? So talk to me a little bit about the relationship management part though, because to your point, you had to start somewhere. You had to get that initial relationship and then leverage that to show, hey, here's what we're doing and here's how we can make this happen for you. Mm-hmm. Did it ever feel like you were like kind of stacking a house of cards? Like, did it feel a little delicate in terms of kind of getting it set up and started?
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's still delicate. It's still delicate with customers because the customers they're not just customers, they're family. You have to continue to be in contact with your customers and have conversations about, hey, how's things looking 3 to 6 months from now? Are you still satisfied? Are you not happy? Right? Because things can be changed, if you're having those conversations, and of course you have different sales calls where, hey, a chair cylinder might not be working. So you're heading out to kind of change the cylinder, have service calls, things like that. So you're really building a long-term conversation with your customers and relationship with them. So our designers, our sales reps are super attentive. They're constantly, reaching out. We do sometimes Christmas parties, holiday parties, or we might take you to a game just to show appreciation, those type of things. But it's really a relationship-based type of industry when you continue to build up and just kind of get an understanding with different people what they want. That's all.
I would imagine because you're building, it's intimate, even though it's corporate interior design or commercial interior design, it's still human beings interacting in a space.
100%.
So this idea of kind of just set it and forget it, I feel like that's probably not going to really be sustainable over time.
No, it's not. It's not sustainable over time. Again, it's when you get to the decision making. Yes, that is about what are we doing, But you have to continue a relationship where it's not personal. You still could. It might be not at this time, but you never know. A year or two or later from now, hey, let's go back to them, right? So you continue to have that relationship talk with them, because synergies or even pricing might not match, right, at this particular time. Or just from the standpoint, the ideas of what you're trying to present or what they want, it just might not match at the same time. You can't take that personal. You just continue to build that relationship with them, have a clear understanding, and we continue to build on that. And then, hey, if it does make sense a year or two later down here, or even 6 months, or if you might know somebody, who might be looking in this area that we can work with, we work with them as well.
I think also about the fact that we're coming, so pandemic's still kind of going on, but return to office is really what's happening.
Yeah.
At the same time, there's like tension and kind of resistance to returning to office at the same degree pre-pandemic, a few years ago. I think my question to you is, as you think about like the landscape of work, like, is there anything you're seeing out there in the market that would make you say, we're going to need to continue to evolve or pivot or shift, because commercial real estate and like just commercial spaces are shifting?
Yeah. We just actually had a great meeting about that, forecasting, and pretty much talking about what's happening in the industry with commercial spaces. And pretty much are corporations or just companies pivoting their whole, and that the question is yes, right? People are scaling back on office spaces a lot, right? They're trying to create a more hybrid situation. Some people can kind of work remote. And yes, and some companies are saying you need to be in the office 5 days a week, right? But then it comes to the whole standpoint, when people was home so much, it was kind of like a hesitant, I want to be around other people. So now how do we create an office space where everybody is more comfortable, still have some type of privacy, but you don't want to keep people isolated? Because now you just have people, I don't want to be around people at all, right? I just want to be on Zoom calls. I don't want to see you. And some companies say, hey, I want that face-to-face interaction. I still want you to shake hands. I want you to kind of get back more into that mode. So you have to kind of find that balance. And again, a lot of people are scaling back their offices space from like 300 to 100. That hurts financially. That hurts the whole dynamic of where things going. But it also kind of tells you, okay, where we are in an economy standpoint, right? And there's some companies like hedge funds and fintech companies that are constantly blowing up. So they say, hey, I want 3 or 4 floors. I need to hire more people, right? So it just depends on what industry that you're targeting and kind of having conversations in. So yes, we do pivot a lot in different ways, but that's really based on what our customers are doing. And then we kind of just continue to have those conversations,
As I think, I want to go back a little bit to the relationship you have with your father and the work that y'all are doing together, right? So I think about intergenerational like relationships are important when I think in business, period. Certainly in like familial contexts, but definitely just in business. If you're thinking about like baby boomers and like what advice would you give, like both ways, from millennials to baby boomers in terms of how to like engage and learn, and then from baby boomers to millennials and younger, Gen Z and Gen Alpha, whatever, ways that they can really work together so that they can really get the most out of the experience and the passion and the exposure. Like, what does that look like from your perspective?
Well, I'll be very vulnerable and personal. I think communication is super huge. Therapy as well. I think that we're all dealing with a lot of trauma, especially baby boomers, and they also have to understand the trauma that the new generation went through, right? So there's a lot of disengagement as far as like ideas and kind of like seeing things on the same page when we're all constantly experiencing this stuff in real time. So a lot of emotion plays a part. So therapy helps a lot when you kind of like just get a more logical understanding how to see things differently, but have a better understanding, accepting, but you can also disagree, right? Yeah. So that's a major point of, I think, that can help from the baby boomers to the young generation. Because what I see a lot is, I'm around a lot of baby boomers because of my father, right? And they say, hey, I wish I had a young man like you. I wish I can do this. I don't have nobody to mentor. I want to pass this down. I want to retire. And it's like, there's a bunch of young people, but what's your approach, right? Are you open to new ideas, or do you want them to be constantly fall into the way you done things? Right. Because you can't operate in that same type of essence. Things have to change, right? Are you open to that? Or are you just strictly hair? Boom, 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 A, B, C, D. They're going to reject that wholeheartedly. Be like, no, I don't want to be in that type of environment because it's stressful. My anxiety's up. I'm not going. Right. So you have to find that common ground understanding. And a lot of that can go through therapy and just understanding. So.
Man, that's really profound. I 100% agree when I think, first of all, like just the self-work and knowing yourself. Like, I think like there's no bigger space besides maybe marriage that exposes like anything you're trying to hide than if you're trying to be successful in business. Because whatever it is that you need to work out, and if you're trying to really go to that next level, it's going to get challenged somewhere in your business aspirations. Like it just is. And like, just so starting with self and starting with an understanding of, okay, here's my stuff. It's not that I'm right, wrong, or whatever, but it's my stuff. And here's what it means for me to navigate this in light of that. And here's, it doesn't mean that I have to kowtow. It doesn't mean that I'm always wrong, but I need to be self-aware enough so that when I show up and things, and I'm not looking confused when things continuously go left in the same ways. So like that self-awareness, self-work is important.
Yeah.
Further to your point around baby boomers, and this is not this, like, shout out to the baby boomers. Thank you.
Yeah. Shout out to them.
Shout out to the baby boomers. Shout out to my parents. Shout out to my in-laws. And shoot, Aunt Joyce, Uncle Marvin, all y'all. I think my challenge is a lot of, because they have not seen it themselves. Mentorship typically does look like, hey, here's my mold. All right, I'm gonna get out this mold, and I want you to come fit yourself right behind me, and then I'm gonna keep on looking back. And when you look like me, then I'm gonna step down. And it's like, that's not really.
It's to do as I say.
it's do as I say. And it's like, hey, like, and it's so, and especially in this age where, like, I mean, again, your story is just a perfect example. Technology is not only creating absolutely like straight pure new avenues of like strategic partnership or expansion, but technology is also creating opportunities for acceleration and scale in ways that previous generations just haven't even imagined, right? Like, I think about digital media and digital storytelling, like here at Living Corporate, you know, like, shoot, even like 6 years ago, Joshua, like when we started, a lot of these tools to like create a ton of different clips and stories that didn't exist. Generally, like AI didn't exist in the same ways. Us being able to take like our entire learning like our entire podcast library and turn them into learning modules. Those things didn't exist. When I've talked to, you know, past baby boomer mentors, and I said, hey, I want to take all these podcasts and I want to turn them into learning modules. They said, okay, that's going to cost you probably like $300,000 because you got to hire like 20 people. And I was like, right. But then in time, I was like, wait a minute, I can do this at a fraction of the cost if we build our own AI model that we can. And so, but like that, but even having those conversations, right. And like getting folks to understand, that's why I just think, just shout out to your dad, because if it was me, right, I could easily see, like, just empathize. And I could easily see myself, if I had a commercial interior design company and my son came up to me and said, let's integrate EV spaces and let's integrate all this other tech, how we can like, let's fold it into how we're doing chairs and desks and tables and blah, blah, blah. I would look at you like you're crazy.
I mean, he did. I mean, he did. I mean, shout out to my father. So eventually, again, I had to show him, and then shout out to my barber, because it was I was bumping heads with him with the EV, and my barber. I mean, he's like my therapist as well. He was like, he cuts my father's hair, cut my father's hair as well. He was like, hey, you just need to kind of like do it and show him the money.
And man, let me tell you something, man. Barbers, real talk. Like, it's just so funny, and it's become kind of cliche. You see the politicians or whoever in the barbershop or whatever, but really, oftentimes, to your point about therapy, barbers do be the closest things to therapists a lot of us have.
Yep.
And so the fact that I'm blessed to have a good barber and a therapist. But man, salute to your barber.
Yeah, I had my barber since I was 15 years old. He's been cutting me and my father's hair since.
See, that's like a cousin, brother, uncle.
Yep, exactly.
At that point, you know what I'm saying? Listen, Josh, we could talk all day, man. But I told you I'd get you out of here in time. Space Continuum. Look, what are you excited about? You think about the next, year and a half. What are you most excited about, and where can people learn more about you?
Well, they can go to our website, spacecontinuum.com. And basically, I'm excited about what we're doing with the government. We're starting to do a lot more business with the Pentagon, federal contracts, and the EV space. I'm excited about creating new infrastructure within our communities. We're creating a workforce development, and we're also doing revenue share within our communities that a lot of our competitors are not doing. So my whole goal is to create a strong ecosystem, not just drop charging stations within our communities, but actually train the people, the kids, people opportunity to get them exposed so they have job placements, and they'll be the ones to maintain these charging stations within their community. So create a very strong ecosystem, where we're functioning properly for the future.
I love it. Like Joshua, man, it's been a pleasure. I'm so glad we were able to connect. Look, you're a friend of the show. Come back anytime.
It's definitely a pleasure having me.
Hey man, listen, it's I appreciate you being here. Now, look, Living Corporate, we're really kind of more like a virtual organization. But if I'm ever in the space where I need to figure out, I'm gonna hit you up. All right.
I want you to come see the showroom. Come hang out, man. We'll have some cigars, get on the balcony, all that stuff. Show you around.
Don't threaten me with a good time, brother. We'll talk soon.
All right, take care, man.
Peace.